Welcome to our Wednesday night program, the Carolinas Weather Group. We're excited for our show tonight. It's how to become a meteorologist. What you have to go through, different types of classes you have to take, and then kind of where it takes you outside of college, in the different realms of the world. So tonight we're looking forward to it. We're expecting a lot of teenagers and kids who are in college and wanting to pursue meteorology to be tuning in tonight, and we're happy to have a lot of guests with us tonight. The regular Joey and Ricky and myself are here tonight, but we have Jeff Haniewich from WSLS in Roanoke, Virginia, who is joining us tonight. We also have Garrett Bedenbaugh from WJAX and WFOX in Jacksonville, Florida, and Cameron Self, who's been with us before from Impact Weather out of Houston, Texas. So those guys are going to be our guests. We're going to let them introduce ourselves here in just a little bit. But before we do that, we always kind of recap the weather of what's been going on in the Carolinas and Virginia over the past week since we've talked last. And actually, Ricky was in Phoenix, Arizona last week, so maybe he can kind of give you like a little 30-second to a minute plug of what all happened out there. But as far as here in the foothills of North Carolina, we kind of dodged the ice bullets. Last night we did have a little bit of icing, but nothing major, nothing like the eastern part of North Carolina and Virginia saw. So, Joey, I'll let you kind of talk about your area, and then we'll let Ricky kind of talk, and then we'll introduce our guest tonight.
Yeah, we like you were saying, we didn't have a lot of ice here. The back deck was completely covered in ice, though. That was a nice skating rink, but most of the roadways were all right. I think I monitored the scanner, just waiting to see if I heard any wrecks last night. I didn't hear any wrecks early in the morning. Oddly enough, I did hear a few calls for people who had fallen, and I figured that was probably falling on their steps. So nothing too exciting here. Everybody just wants snow apparently. So we'll wait for that. So I'll pass it down to Ricky. Let him maybe tell us a little bit about what he got to see out in Phoenix, Arizona, at the big shindig of networking that he was at.
What did I get to see in Phoenix? I got to see myself sitting poolside in 80-degree weather because it was very nice, warm, and awesome out there. And then I came back and it was like 20 degrees. But regardless, yeah, last week I was at the Ams Annual Meeting, which this year was held in Phoenix, Arizona. Student conference was on Saturday and Sunday, with WeatherFest being thrown in on Sunday too, which is a big public event that the AMS puts on each year. And then on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday was the annual meeting where there were conferences throughout the day, sub-conferences, and lots of presentations and meetings trying to improve the skill of weather forecasting and weather communication across the board. So I sat in on a lot of the weather communication ones, got to recap some of the big events of 2014, and then we were able to go and talk a little bit about how we're going to communicate uncertainty and other types of weather better to the public. So, and then on Wednesday night, a kind of a local connection, Dr. Gary Lackman from NC State was awarded the Edward N. Lorenz Teaching Excellence Award. And if you've ever been in meteorology, or if you're looking to go into meteorology, there's a pretty good chance you're going to end up using Dr. Lackman's book sometime in your career. He's a real pioneer in writing some of those synoptic books that we use in our classrooms a lot. So it was great to see him get recognized for that.
Ricky, take a second and plug your big shindig instead of doing it at the end of the show. Let's get it at the beginning this week.
Yeah, I mentioned WeatherFest, and so as we've mentioned a few times before, we're holding Charlotte WeatherFest coming up on March 21st. So I actually got a call from a local school district today talking about how they wanted to bring some kids out from Newton and Conover. So hopefully we'll get a few more kids out there and some Boy Scouts as well and get the thing rolling along.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to WeatherFest at UNCC coming up, and Joey's little neck of the woods pulled out there. It looks like they're going to be bringing the kids coming in, so that's great.
Now I got to figure out where I'm going to park a busload of kids.
All right, guys, well, let's kind of go around to our guests tonight. We'll introduce them and let them kind of talk about themselves just a little bit, where they're stationed at, and kind of maybe what they experienced here through the cold snap of last week and then the messy weather that we've had this week. So we'll start off in Roanoke, Virginia with Jeff at WSLS. And Jeff, thanks for coming on tonight.
It's my pleasure to be here, guys. It was interesting because, we've been cold for such a long time here, temperatures have been only in the 30s for highs. Lows have been in the teens and 20s. We didn't pick up a lot of moisture last night. We only got up to around an inch of snow and sleet and maybe about a tenth of an inch of freezing rain. And in North Carolina, I went to UNC Asheville, and it doesn't take much to create issues when it comes to ice, even an inch of snow, and we certainly got that last night. Temperatures were so cold for so long that anything that fell almost stuck on contact, and that's what created all the issues last night across Southwest and Central Virginia. We've had numerous reports of accidents. Thankfully, now the moisture is gone, the precipitation's gone, but you always have to worry about that potential for some refreezing overnight tonight. And of course, everybody wants to know, when is the big kahuna coming? You know, last year we got 28 inches on February 12th and 13th, and everybody wants to know if that's going to happen again this year. And who knows what's going to happen come February. But anyways, that's the latest from Roanoke.
That's interesting. I did a little research this past week, and the first snowfall here in western North Carolina last year was measurable snowfall was January 25th, and then we had 3 or 4 storms in February. So winter by no means is over with. It's just actually getting ready to start to get going according to some of the weather models for next week. So let's go down to sunny Florida. I don't know if it's warm down there, but we can head down to Florida with Garrett Bedenbaugh from WJAX and WFOX in Jacksonville, Florida. Garrett, thanks for coming on tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good to talk with my good old Carolina people that I'm used to seeing on Facebook and on Twitter. I'm at WFOX and WJAX TV. We're the CBS and Fox affiliate down here, so a duopoly, which you can actually do in television, which is kind of a cool thing, and it adds its own elements as well, with 2 different affiliations with sports and with breaking into different shows for weather coverage and stuff like that, and knowing when not to. More importantly, sometimes you don't want to break into the Super Bowl for something not really important. But anyway, so yeah, I went to UNC Charlotte. It's from my Carolina connection there. I'm from South Carolina. I went to UNC Charlotte 2008 to 2012, graduated in May, and then went down to Columbia, South Carolina, the Fox affiliate there, for my first gig out of television. And I was actually doing stuff beforehand in my senior year at UNC Charlotte, kind of driving down, interning in Charlotte as well. But now I'm here after a 2-year stint in Columbia. I'm now here in Jacksonville. I've been here since May, so I'll be here for a few years, which I love it. The beach, maybe you've seen some of my posts on Twitter with some of you guys. The beach is pretty cool. And actually, speaking of weather, last week we had snow falling in Northeast Florida. We had a band of showers and freezing, a little bit of sleet perhaps, but also some snow. And then we had picked up a trace of snow at the international airport. The most snow Jacksonville's ever gotten is 1.89, I believe it is, in 1899. I believe I'm correct. I've tried to pull up an image here for me to check. But so it's very rare, obviously, here in Florida. So that was a full-blown newscast there, as you can imagine, last Thursday.
Do you miss the snow and ice, Garrett?
I do not. I do not. Especially the cold air wedge stuff, man. I mean, we still get the outer fringe effects, but I enjoy just rain and storms. It does enough, and the potential, for the tropical stuff. That's pretty fun as well.
But the most important question that Joey and I have to ask, since you are in Jacksonville, Florida, have you been converted to a Florida Gator fan yet?
Well, no, UNC Charlotte has football now, so
we still don't have to
go Niners.
All
right, thanks, Garrett. And let's go over to Houston, Texas with Cameron Self. Cameron, thanks for coming on tonight. How have you been, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. Things are pretty chilly here in Texas for Texas standards. We've had highs in the 40s and lows in the 30s. It's been very cloudy here. One thing that's actually kind of surprised me about South Texas is I guess once you get this far south, the Arctic air masses are very shallow. So what we get is a lot of cold, dense air undercutting a lot of that moist Gulf air, and so Arctic blast here in Houston could mean a high as cold as 39, but the low is only 36 because it's cloudy and it doesn't change that much. And the coldest we've been is, well, we have 2 airports. The southern one near the coast has been 30, and then it hit 28 up at Bush. I know it's been like 5 up where you guys are. We've seen no snow, no ice, just lots of rain, clouds, and doom, and cold and awfulness. But anyways, I work at a company called Impact Weather. I'm specifically a tropical meteorologist, so my specialty is forecasting tropical cyclones. Right now we've got 2 near Madagascar. There's one in the West Pacific, believe it or not. It's the basin that just never seems to sleep. But I also do even doing a snowfall forecast for Madrid, Spain, for a Facebook location. So I do more than just tropics, but tropics is kind of my specialty and what I do maybe 70% of the time.
But Cameron, those hurricanes are spinning in the wrong direction.
You're gonna have to get over it. I don't know what to tell you. It's just how it is down there. It's weird, very weird. Actually, I'll say when I first started this job and I had to start drawing weather maps for the southern hemisphere, I was so messed up. The first couple days I was drawing things wrong. My cold front kept facing the wrong direction and to correct things. I'm used to it now, but it was weird. Things are strange down there.
I'll make sure to mention that to Terry when he puts southern hemisphere stuff on his next synoptic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta get used to it.
All right, well, let's hand it over to Ricky, the guy who's actually in the classroom about to graduate for his meteorology degree. So, Ricky, we'll turn the interview over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, got about, let's see, less than 5 months now, I think. May 10th, yeah, less than 5 months until graduation and commencement day comes around. So, just like all the guys here on the panel, I've been through actually all of the meteorology courses now. We've gone through advanced dynamics, advanced synoptic, and I imagine for you guys too, when you first learned you wanted to be a meteorologist, maybe back in elementary school or maybe even younger for some of you, what did you think meteorology was at your early age? Did you think it was a lot of math and physics involved?
No.
And going off that, once you realize what it was, and maybe that wasn't until you got to college, what type of classes did you have to take, to kind of prepare yourself for that? What classes would you recommend a student would take if they're looking to go into college for something like meteorology? I'll just open that up to any of you guys.
No. So, hey, that's a Fox News Affiliates theme I hear in the background. I'll take it real quick. Yeah, we just changed from that music, actually. We're now on a Gary music. Anyway, yeah, so I used to think that, I'll just go real quick, I guess I never really thought that the physics and the math and everything, when you're a kid, when most people start figuring out that they want to be a broadcast meteorologist or be what they call the weatherman or the weather lady, then you really don't ever think about the physics and the math and the communication skills and all of that. You're just thinking about, the TV, tracking storms and all this stuff, going to schools, maybe getting a cake or two. But then you run into the math and the physics and the science and all that stuff, and really it becomes one of the things that you've really got to enjoy and love weather to even begin to think about what you're going to do here in the broadcast field. But it's really... I'm trying to think how to describe what I did. Well, I started in 3rd grade. That's where I trace it back to where I wanted to be a meteorologist. I didn't have an event. I didn't have a snowstorm. I didn't have a hurricane like most people do, at least that I've heard from. Just kind of watch the Weather Channel and watch the local news and stuff like that. It's kind of nerdy, but I did. And I was able to set my path forward. And so I think you got to figure out where you want to go as early as you can, and then you can prepare that whole time before you even get to that point where you've really got to, perform. And so that's what I did, taking the right science and math classes in high school and middle school, knowing that the eventual end game was to be a broadcast meteorologist. So, if you have if you can make it the decision that you want to be a meteorologist soon enough, you have that much more time to prepare. And I'll pass it off.
And one of the things, we speak to a lot of kids who go to a lot of schools around here, and I always say you've got to like either math or science, preferably both, but if you don't like either, this is not the job for you. I don't like math at all, but I love science. So, the Calc 1, the Calc 2, the Calc 3, the Diffie Q, those were tough. Those were really tough. But you know what? There's a light at the end of the tunnel that once you get through those initial math courses, you know, then you get into intro to meteorology, synoptic meteorology, dynamic meteorology, thermodynamics, and that's the stuff that really interests you. But so much of meteorology is based in math, and you know, in TV, and I don't know about you, Garrett, but I've not used one mathematical equation since I graduated from UNC Asheville in 2001.
Nope.
So true.
And that's probably a pretty popular thing, you know, just the whole forecasting generic. And I wish we had someone in the research committee, but Cameron, you've done a little bit of research in the past.
I have done research, but one thing I was going to say is if I had advice to give to someone is to try and get as much operational forecasting experience possible. So that can be done through forecasting, that can be done through an internship. You can do it with a forecasting challenge. You can have your own weather page on Facebook. And another thing is you can find out the teaching style of certain professors. So at UNC Charlotte, 2 people taught mesoscale meteorology. One was quite a bit more academic than the other, while the other one, it was more of a severe weather forecasting class. So if you, and this is something I didn't really realize until after I graduated, but the classes that I have found the most useful were the ones that gave me real-world forecasting problems as the ones that wanted me to solve the hypsometric equation, though it's a great equation. But that would be my advice to someone, is to just get as much operational experience, especially internships. Internships are gold.
And Garrett and Cameron, the thing that I remember most about my first job in television, and I interned with Greg Fischel in Raleigh. I interned with Van Denton in Greensboro. They told me it's not about how good you are. It's not necessarily about how good your resume tape is. Your first job is all about who you know. So Cameron, that I word, that internship word, is so vitally important to your initial success in this business.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the hand you shake, really, and seriously, it is a true statement for us in broadcast meteorology. I mean, you got internships. I did 2. I did one at Fox in Charlotte, one at NBC. So Reg Taylor and Brad Panovich, both great people to know with different people that they know, and so then you put them on your resume, and they tell the people how good you are. In fact, I had somebody call me today about a Charlotte person, which I can't really say right now on here, and so that's kind of the connection thing. You just know people, and so hopefully you can help others, and once you get in the field, get jobs as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would also say, especially when you're applying to jobs, show people that you're very passionate, because the company that I'm currently at, so I got hired in 2014, but I met people from the company at AMS back in 2012, and I had been on and off in contact with this company for 2 years before I even got this job. But and I even applied to a position before and didn't get it. So not only did they look at my resume and think, oh, this kid has A, B, and C going for him, but they were like, this guy actually really wants to work here. Mm-hmm. And I think your employer, whether it's TV or whatever it is, if they believe that you really want to work for them, I think that's also a really big plus.
Mm-hmm. And so going from once you guys were in school and you've had your internships and everything, what were the classes that you found the most struggling, besides maybe dynamics? Because I think we're all going to say dynamics.
Yeah. Oh. Physics 2 with the engineers, man. Physics 1, I think. Physics 2, yeah. Physics 2
circuits, which I'm in now. So.
Yeah. Man, that was I was writing on the tests for the final. I think it was, please help, or something. Please have mercy. I just want to be a weatherman. Like, that was what I was writing.
Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, that's what I was doing, because it's hard, man. It is hard.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my story.
I didn't like Calc 3. Calculus 3 to me was just, my mind does not work in 3 dimensions. I'm a very two-dimensional guy. And Calculus 3 is all 3 dimensions. And Calculus 3 to me was the hardest class. And the hierarchy, at least at UNC Asheville, I don't know what it was at UNCC, was Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3, and then Diff EQ. And Calc 1 and Calc 2 were kind of hard. Calc 3 was impossible. But then I got to Diff EQ, and Diff EQ wasn't so bad.
Yeah, I took kind of an odd educational route. When I was at College of Charleston, I was majoring in physics. So basically all I did was physics, and that was really hard, especially so the way it works out is, you know how you have Physics 1, which is classical mechanics, and Physics 2, which is electricity and magnetism. But then when you're a physics major, not only do you take those two, but then you take the more advanced version of those two courses. And I actually thought the most advanced version of Physics 1 was just an absolute disaster. That was horrific. And then some of the scarier sounding courses like classical mechanics, or quantum mechanics. I mean, that was still hard, but I actually thought the advanced version of Physics 1 was actually the hardest course. And then in terms of meteorology, I would probably have to say that atmospheric chemistry in grad school was pretty rough, because for anyone who wants to go to grad school, I thought the hardest courses were the ones where I was cross-listed with undergrads. And what happens is the teacher has to give you more work. So sometimes they could be cool about it and just give you one extra project, and then sometimes they give you a completely different test and completely different homeworks and all this extra stuff. And that's what the atmospheric chemistry professor did to me, and it was scary. But I lived.
Moral of the story, as you just said, was you survived it, though, and you ended up getting into your career path. And so, you know, since you graduated from college, what were the people who helped you along the way? You know, what did your internships, Jeff, with like Greg Fishel, or Garrett with Brad and Reg, teach you along the way? And, you know, how would you recommend students try to get into things like that? Jeff, you can take that first if you'd like.
I'm sorry?
I said, how did your internships along the way with like Greg Fishel or other people, or with Garrett, with Brad and Reg, help you along the way, and how would you recommend students get into that?
I think the internship was the most vital part of my college career. I think the classes are vitally important. I think, you know, you need to know the meteorology, but for television, again, it's about networking. And I think Garrett touched on that earlier. Networking is huge within the meteorology community. I think either Garrett or Cameron talked about going to an AMS conference, or maybe even you did, Ricky. And if you did do that in college, you're a step above the game, because people are going to know who you are. They're going to remember you. Greg helped me so much, initially showing me what TV meteorology is all about. I did that internship, when was it? I think my junior year. And then I did my internship with Van Denton my senior year. And throughout high school, I actually interned with a guy named Ed Piotrowski at WPDE in Myrtle Beach. And I mean, those three guys were vital to who I am today. I mean, I try at least to take little bits and pieces of what I learned from them and still incorporate that here in 2014, and I've been doing this now for 13 years. So, you know, I have so much appreciation and gratitude for those three guys for putting up with me when I was in high school and in college.
Yeah, so I interned with Brad Panovich, who's been on this program, heard before at WCNC. Ricky's interned there as well, and also Reg Taylor. It's funny, I actually met Reg at WCNC for a student workshop and had the internship with him first, but it's kind of funny, and then Brad after that. But both of those, I mean, Reg put me on TV as an intern, and I mean, obviously you're smiling from ear to ear and you're sweating and all this stuff. You're all nervous, and it was great. So you got experience, real world experience, like you were the meteorologist from internships. You know, you do these tapes over and over and over. They critique you. They let you know, hey, you know, maybe say it this way, or maybe describe the cold front that way, or, you know, here's what you're saying that doesn't really make that much sense, but it does make sense to you, but not really to the viewer. So you can learn different communication skills. And also when you get a job, you learn from those folks who are in the workplace with you. So I mean, I had my chief meteorologist down in Columbia, Henry Rothenberg. He introduced me to different things, and then also he introduced me to his mentor, KNBC's chief meteorologist Brian Busby, who's a legend in the business, who I got tips and detail and different things to do from him, and I've actually implemented those into my weather forecast, like keeping your left hand down to make you more confident, or doing things like this and that, and it's just hilarious how you can pick up so many different skill sets from so many different people that sometimes you've never even met in person, but through, say, social media like this. I mean, and Brad, man, he taught me just by watching him a bunch about social media. Obviously, taught a bunch of people in the meteorology community about that as well. But it's really, again, networking is really the key with your internships and actually getting that tape together. Because otherwise, you're going to have the green screen that looks horrible in the lighting in the meteorology lab. And so, I mean, you know.
Hey, Garrett, I just got a message from Reg. He's watching tonight. He says, Garrett is the man, and he was the best intern that he ever had. You have loads of passion, and you're going to go far in the world. You got a nice message there from Reg Taylor.
Did Reg have any other interns, or?
I
think
guess
he's had a couple.
And he just called us out.
But yeah, I mean, Reg put me on at ABC Columbia, where they do the weather from Charlotte to the same parent company, and so I did that 6 o'clock weather, and anyway, then I went to Columbia, which is kind of funny. Yeah, so his experience like that is just invaluable. That you can share with your peers, you guys on here. I mean, everything like that is very good to get to know people and go to these AMS conferences. I mean, I went to one in New Orleans while I was still in college. I've been to an NWA one, which is more operational meteorology, so that's good too. And a lot of broadcasters go to that one. So.
And one of the best things that Greg Fischel ever taught me is he goes, Jeff, this doesn't sound crazy, but when you go home tonight, practice in front of a mirror.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what? Practice in front of a mirror? You said, no, the chroma key is opposite. You said east is west, west is east. You want to practice as much as you can in front of a mirror. And I'll never forget that. So those who do want to get into television meteorology, you'll be a step above the game when you get over to that green screen over there. If you practice in front of a mirror, as strange as it sounds.
Brad Panovich just told me the same thing. And from that, and the thing that when I first started doing chroma key tapes, I didn't really have the smile thing down. I just kind of had a stale face. He's like, dude, just go home and smile at yourself in the mirror for like 5 minutes. And then eventually you'll like your smile and you'll like get used to it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and even Ricky, I've seen you progress from when you first started your internship to now. I mean, it's awesome.
Thanks.
So, peer-to-peer mentoring is also pretty cool.
And I'm just going to kind of throw Garrett on the bus a little bit, but give him a bit of praise too, because he's been really helpful to me too over the years. I mean, he's looked at a few of my tapes and critiqued a few things. The hand down the side thing, which I still have. Yeah. I'm going to tape my hand to my side if I don't get it down.
That's
soon.
a Brian Busby thing. Chief meteorologist, KNBC 9 News in Kansas City.
Gotcha.
Garrett, did you ever live in Kansas City?
No. First time I'd met Brian when he came to visit and chat with. Actually, he has some kinfolk in South Carolina, so I met him through Henry, my former chief in Columbia. But yeah.
Yeah, I actually lived in Olathe, Kansas for a little while, so I watched him quite a bit. Brian Busby's he's kind of a legend.
Yeah. And I watch him on live streams, tornado coverage. I watch different meteorologists, and I pick up on stuff. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to say take your immediate tornado precautions like Gary England one day out in Oklahoma. Who's unfortunately, he's retired now, obviously, but I'm sure I'm going to say it one time.
I've watched James Spann countless tornado coverage videos over the years, so yeah, we learn from others for sure. So Cameron, we've been talking more about broadcast meteorology, but networking, I'm sure, is kind of out there in the private sector as well. I mean, from AMS conferences and other conferences. The problem I have with the private sector is it seems like there's a lot of jobs that are kind of hidden. So how do students go about finding those jobs, and how do students go about learning what they need for those jobs?
So that is a really good question. So when I was originally applying for jobs, there are some that are posted online, definitely, that you can apply to. But one thing you have to understand is lots of people are going to be applying to the positions that are put out there that everyone sees. And so one thing that I did was I literally just Googled private sector weather companies, and you get, I mean, there's a ton of them. I don't even know how many there are. There's just too many to count. And so I literally just looked through as many as I could and checked off the ones that I thought looked interesting to me, places I thought that I would like working, and I just started emailing people. And kind of like what I said earlier, or at least it goes along with that theme, is that unlike someone who's applying to a job application that everyone is applying to, when you are just emailing a company being like, hey, I don't know if you have any job offers, but I like your company, I like the product, I like the message, if you have any openings, let me know, that shows them that you're specifically interested in their company. And so, and one thing that I noticed is I actually got more responses from companies that I just randomly sent them an email without them having a job posting than the ones that actually had job postings. So my recommendation would be for people just to contact companies, just look them up online, see what's out there, and that worked really well for me. I got a few interviews that way. In terms of the chroma key, though, even I can't escape it, because and so even in private sector, you have to know how to communicate weather. You have to be able to make a presentation. And during hurricane season, we do our tropical daily briefing videos. And we, if there's a hurricane out there every several hours, we're going to be making a video. And guess what? There's a green screen behind me. I have a little clicker thing, and it goes online. You have to pay to see it, though. Sorry, guys. But you know, so you actually have to be able to communicate, probably not quite on the same level as you do on TV, but you know, it's essential, because half of forecasting, even in private sector, is communication, no matter what.
That's a great point that you brought up, though, because I think a lot of, you know, maybe the research people or private sector people kind of shy away from, you know, communicating or going to a lot of these talks about communication and how we're able to better convey the risk of uncertainty to people. So I'm very glad you brought that up, because it's an important point. So,
you're welcome.
Did have a question that came in. Scotty posted. Barry Dean Hooks asked, "Is it ever too late to become a meteorologist?"
No.
I don't know.
I've seen, you know, a lot of times, especially and specifically in broadcasting, people decide that they want to be doing weather instead of maybe news or sports or something. You know, it's here and far between, but you can go back and get your degree from somewhere, or do it online from somewhere, and then all of a sudden, if you got what it takes, you get maybe a tape together. I mean, that can, age shouldn't be a factor if you're waiting, you know, say post-college or early life kind of thing. I don't know why it would hinder it. It depends on if somebody wants to hire you. That's the basic thing.
Well, at UNC Charlotte, I can actually think of a couple examples of people who recently got their undergrad and they're in their 30s, and you know, they got a job, and I even know people in their 40s who got into it then, and I don't see why people couldn't do it in their 50s and 60s, to be honest with you. I really think you can just do it at any time. These days, you would probably have to go back to school unless you have some sort of military background where you had weather training, because I know we've hired people who have that. But yeah, I think it can be done at any age.
Work off of that a little bit, Cameron, and talk about the military experience. How does that transfer over to the private sector, who are maybe a little more open to taking some of that experience?
Well, so we have people that I work with who've actually never gotten a meteorology degree, but they went into the military, and maybe this is kind of sort of old school. I don't know if this is how things work anymore, because typically the people I'm talking about are a little bit older, but they had meteorology training while in the military, and then that just kind of segued into a meteorology career. And experience is one of the primary things that companies look for. I mean, they do understand that you have people coming out of school and they don't have that much experience. But to be honest with you, if you have someone who was in the military for several years and got some training in there, and then that went into a job where they had several years more of forecasting experience, then the company might actually be more inclined to take that person who technically doesn't have a degree over someone who's fresh out of undergrad.
And just had another question come in on Twitter from JB_weather. He was asking to all you guys, what's your top meteorology colleges, or meteorology or atmospheric sciences? Is there a difference between the two? And then one more question after that, but I'll let you guys answer those first.
I would say that it's all about what you do with your education, because there are definitely people that I work with that went to schools that are perceived as more prestigious, but I got the same job. So at the end of the day, it really didn't matter. It's all about what you do with your degree. And if you're going to grad school, it's more important who your research advisor is, not really the title of the school. So my research advisor, Dr. Matthew Easton at UNC Charlotte, he's actually pretty well known in the tropical meteorology community. I have gone to conferences and said, I'm studying tropical meteorology at UNC Charlotte, and the person goes, oh, you must be Matt's kid. So that's really important if you're trying to choose a grad school. But it's really all about what you do with your education, not where you go. I think so.
And then a question, let's see, for both Jeff and Garrett. What about minoring in journalism for people who want to go into broadcast? Is that something that's still looked upon positively these days? And I know, Garrett, you tried to take courses when you were here at UNC Charlotte and ran into some difficulty doing that, correct?
Yeah, you know, the way UNC Charlotte has it set up is you have to be minoring in communications. If it's still the same way a couple years ago, you had to minor in communications, actually take some of those classes. So, like, I couldn't, as a meteorology major, just straight up meteorology major, I couldn't go take a journalism class, which I needed, really, to do some of the, you know, a lot of times your first couple jobs, you got to do some side reporting, unfortunately, if you're the weekend person, but I don't write here, thankfully. The company believes in a weather team, so that's good. Yeah, exactly, right, man. So that's good news, but if you can do it, I would say why not, because that only gives you more experience, and plus it makes you, sometimes I noticed a lot of our weather people that report do some pretty dang good reporting, especially about the environment and, you know, flooding or whatever story. I mean, you really add a level of expertise, and then when you do it well with that journalism knowledge, you actually you stand out when you're getting another job.
I couldn't agree with you more, Garrett. I went to Elon University back when I was in school. It was Elon College, and got my degree in communications and Spanish, and then went back to school to get my degree in atmospheric science from UNC Asheville. And I did that for the sole reason to hope that I was a little more marketable than somebody with just a meteorology degree. As it turns out, I don't think it mattered. But you know, now I have two schools to root for when it comes to NCAA basketball tournament time. So, so yeah, I think the communications aspect helped. When you do meteorology on TV, I think the meteorology program is probably a little more beneficial than the communications degree, although I hosted a sports talk show in college at Elon, and just being in front of the camera made me a little more comfortable in my first job than I would have been had I not done that talk show.
Yeah, and I did radio before, back at home. Anything that can get you into, if you're doing broadcasting, anything that you can get early. You know, I interned at a radio station, small, but they let me do stuff. And so the more you do, obviously, the more you can put towards your career.
So we've been talking about meteorology careers specifically, but I know there's probably someone out there who's wondering, you know, what type of different jobs are there in meteorology? And maybe one of those that's brought up in his or her mind is storm chasing. In your honest opinion, is it possible nowadays to make a quote-unquote living or a career as a storm chaser?
There's possible, and then there's likely.
I love Garrett's reaction.
It depends. I mean, I don't. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, Ricky and Scotty, that's a very good question. I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of students who go out and storm chase. And I do know that there are companies that make storm chasing equipment, so there have got to be folks who are full-time storm chasers, but I'm not quite sure. I cannot speak to that aspect of meteorology. I can tell you that one of the coolest jobs I've ever heard anybody have in meteorology is this guy I went to school with, Andy Pierman, and I believe still is, a meteorologist for the PGA Tour. So he goes to like the Masters and goes to Sawgrass TPC in Jacksonville, Garrett. By the way, if you can get me on that course, I'll be forever in debt to you.
They have happy hour. You don't have to be a member, by the way. Just kidding.
Hey, Jeff, when you drive down here, just pick me up and we'll go play.
That's right. That's right. But that's a cool job. I mean, that's a really cool job.
You also have Brian, your friend Ricky, who does the weather for NASCAR as well.
Yeah, Brian Newdoff, Garrett knows him as well, does kind of on the side forecasting for SB Nation for NASCAR forecasts each week. So
hey, that's a cool job too.
He's gotten to that. He's also a broadcast met out in Idaho, but he enjoys doing NASCAR forecasts, and it's one of those things that he just kind of decided to do on his own, and that in the past couple of years has been a big part of meteorology. A lot of people are branching out more and doing stuff on their own, and what have you guys thought about that, and have you thought about doing something of your own as well? Are we going to see WXGarrett.com come around and be the next forecasting?
Well, I have that already. That's my website where I put my resume, and that's actually a good point real quick, is if you want to do TV stuff or maybe even another part of meteorology, it's get a website, get a web presence to put your stuff on. Because if I'm an employer, I'm going to be honest, we've had a lot of new candidates come in with different jobs at Action News in Jacksonville. The first thing I do when I meet them in the studio is Google their name. And then see what pops up.
I think my Twitter is like the second or third result, so
I would actually do that with yourself. See what pops up when you Google your name.
Yeah.
My arrest record's the first thing.
Joey, don't do that.
Up there in Catawba County.
Don't Google my name.
Joey Mosteller.
In terms of different types of meteorologists, I can just tell you about some of the jobs I applied to. I applied to a wind meteorologist position in Portland, Oregon, for a wind turbine company, where basically they try and find where the windy areas are to build their wind farms. And then I applied to 2 air quality meteorologist positions. I also applied to this one, which was really cool. I can't remember the name of the company, but they were in Florida, and they do marine forecasting for marine sports events and like yacht races and stuff like that, which I thought was pretty cool. I'm not sure how much pay, though, was involved with that. And then even at my company, I mean, we do all kinds of forecasting you wouldn't think a meteorologist would do. Like, there's people who do forecasting for Olive Garden. Olive Garden needs to know weather. Lots of companies need to know weather. Bank of America is one. Like I said, I'm doing a snowfall forecast for a Facebook location in Madrid. I mean, lots of people need forecasts. You'd be surprised, or maybe not.
And touching on what Garrett said earlier about the website, TV is only a small part of what we do. Facebook is so important. Twitter is so important. The website, WSLS.com, we do so much for the website. This is becoming much more than just a television job. It's becoming a multimedia job. Facebook and Twitter are becoming almost as important as what we do at 5, 5:30, 6, 10, 11 every day.
That kind of brings me to this question is, what is your, I mean, going off of the social media and website and stuff, I mean, you guys really, it's not a 9-to-5 job for you guys. I mean, it's almost, definitely during severe weather, it's almost like a 24/7 job for you guys. Kind of talk a little bit about the average worker is a 9-to-5 and then they're done, but you guys, not only are you doing your forecast, but you're doing TV, and then you're answering social media, and then you have to come back and do your late PM news. I mean, it's not a job for the weak, honestly.
Yeah, it can be. I'm gonna be honest. It can be intense, especially the wet season, or we get the sea breeze down here in Jacksonville. You got thunderstorms popping up 3 to 4 o'clock every day, and you're just kind of got that anxiety over you, like which one is gonna like go rogue real quick, and you're always monitoring and tweeting updates and stuff like that. And the thing is, with social media the way it is now, and I've learned this again from watching other people, including my former mentor, not former, but my mentor, Brad Panovich. I mean, when people want to know it, when it's impacting them, you've got to be there to provide it for them, or else they're going to go to somebody else, maybe across the street to that competitor that you don't want them watching. It's the competition in TV too, and you got to be there. So you're tweeting updates with radar, with different random facts that they probably won't get from that. What is it? Crap app that I've heard people say from the model-based apps that people download, and real life human info that you can provide them and your local knowledge. That's kind of one of the stressors, is trying to figure out different ways to do that in those severe events, because it can get overwhelming. You have to remind yourself that other people on another platform are waiting on you.
Sure. And the other thing I'll say, sort of piggybacking off of what Garrett said, is I don't know if folks out there know, but there's something called sweeps periods in television. Don't ever think about taking vacation in February, May, July, depends on the station, and November. So those 4 months out of the year, you're here, and you've got to do your job. There's no such a thing as a vacation. I've got a wife, and she's wondering when the next time I can take her out to a Valentine's dinner will be. We always have to wait for the following weekend, or the weekend before. But the other thing I want to touch on very quickly, and Garrett can also attest to this, and Cameron probably can too, is there's no such thing in meteorology, at least in television meteorology, as a 9-to-5 job. You're a morning meteorologist, and if you're that, you work from 4 a.m. or around 4 a.m. until 12:30, 1 o'clock. And then you have the evening meteorologist who comes in at 2 p.m. and doesn't leave until midnight. So if you're wanting, a 9-to-5 job, I'm not so sure television meteorology is the career for you. For me, it's not that big of a deal, because I've got a wife who understands. I've got a 2-year-old who understands. Now, the time that I've missed her first dance recital, she's not going to be happy. But, that's one of the, I don't want to say drawback, but it's kind of one of the negatives about the job. You have to work weird hours.
If there's anything I'm learning from this, is how much overlap there is between TV and what I do. It's kind of ridiculous hearing you guys say all these things. A lot of the same stuff. I do not work a 9-to-5 job remotely. Today I worked a 7 to 5:30 job, and I mean I do night shifts quite frequently. I'll get several days off in a row, and then I'll work 7 days in a row. I never know what day it is anymore because of that. Also, kind of going on with what was just talked about, and it's not like I'm trying to get people to not be a meteorologist, but say you're one who likes extracurriculars. When I was in high school and in college, I was always involved in music ensembles, and this could even apply to sports or anything. But if you want to be a part of something that has a strict attendance policy, then meteorology is going to be a struggle, because I really have, if I'm going to be a part of any sort of group, it has to be really flexible with me, because my hours are always changing. And kind of going on about what Garrett was talking about with the thunderstorms, and sometimes you have to be there longer. I mean, if there's a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, I got to bring my sleeping bag and Red Bull to work. Like, I'm not going to leave. I'm going to be there until the thing makes landfall. Hopefully everything's, still standing. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of how the job is. But also, it means there are quiet periods too. Like, although I'm not allowed to ask for time off, and from like late July to early October, kind of like how you guys said, you can't really ask for time off during certain times of year. But then we do have our quiet periods, and the quiet periods, they can be kind of nice. And that's when you take all your vacation.
And
Go ahead.
even during, a lot of people watching this are probably in college or, what was it? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, I'll go ahead. Okay, sorry. I was going to say a lot of people watching this are probably, in college or in high school or below, and so you'll even find yourself, because hopefully you're a weather nerd, you'll be finding yourself staying up late monitoring maybe radar, maybe you've got some radar equipment or from one of the different vendors that perhaps you downloaded or something, and that's one of the cool thing actually that helps build your, I don't know, scientific knowledge, because you remember certain events and you remember how things shaped out and which way, say, the storm usually went in this situation. And it's one of those things that really kind of helps you go along. And even in college, I mean, I was always, that's my former roommates, Kurt and Cole, and fraternity brothers and all that. I was always on.
Yes.
And I'll throw a few thoughts into that too, just Garrett from the college side. A few things we've done here personally at UNC Charlotte is we created a campus weather account for Twitter called @UNCC Weather. Also a Facebook page, but I hate Facebook and I'm not very good at keeping that updated. So Twitter is my go-to thing. But we also have a meteorology club on campus, and we also have reached out to different organizations to come present to that club. And one of the opportunities we got last year as a result of having the City of Charlotte Emergency Management Department come out and do a presentation was we now have a meteorologist or a student meteorologist from our department on site at every Panthers game that's a home game, every big event like Speed Street, which is our big festival here in Charlotte for the Coca-Cola 600, and a few other events. So reach out to your local organizations, especially if you're a graduate student, because you are a meteorologist, and you've got skills you can present to them. And a lot of times these companies or organizations, and even on the local government level, don't really understand how to interpret weather information too well. And if you can kind of open their eyes and let them see that, they're going to be pretty grateful to it. And emergency management especially is looking for meteorologists nowadays who know how to communicate weather to them.
Yeah, as we're closing on the 9 o'clock hour, I was going to ask all of our guests, meteorology, you're there for the people. I mean, James Spann we had on the show back before Christmas, he said we're a servant to the people. So I was going to ask if you guys could maybe kind of hit on some of the highlights or that's really stuck out so far in your career of maybe helping people out or a particular storm that you made the right forecast for. We'll kind of end this part of the show on a high note of what's been something that's really stuck out doing this for you guys.
Let me go first. So we had a couple weeks ago. We had this is just a recent one that comes to mind. We had a tornado warning, and we were on the air for about 3+ hours with tornado coverage, post-storm coverage, the way we do things here, and it was kind of nice to wind it down afterwards. But we got a lot of feedback from our viewers who were saying, hey, thanks, man. Like, as soon as you told us to get down, we got down, and it was more of a straight line wind event anyway. But we got down and the storm hit us. Thanks for being on point. Thanks for getting us that information. And it's kind of cool to realize, we can't say some people say it, but it's kind of weird to say we save lives. It's just, we're just doing our job, and we hope to, in the process, help people out and help them make the right decisions based on the current situation. And so it's kind of nice to get the feedback to let you know that those long hours that we've been talking about, those, no eating days, the pack of crackers, all you get, it really is kind of nice to get the feedback, the positive feedback, and not just the people yelling at you for being on the TV during their show. That helps. It's nice to hear that we help people make decisions that are that really help them out personally.
And sometimes the meteorologists are the eyes and the ears in the center of a storm. I'll give you an example. Back, when was it? Hurricane Irene, was that 3 years ago? I work for a company called Media General, and Media General sent a meteorologist down there. I was kind of volunteered for it, and I loved it. So it's the eeriest sensation in the world to see thousands upon thousands of cars going west, and then your trail of 3 cars going east into Morehead City, North Carolina, to Atlantic Beach to cover this hurricane. But it's kind of cool to be the eyes and the ears of a storm that is impacting so many folks, that's making national coverage. I think that's, and you know, I every time I tell my mom and dad I'm going to cover a hurricane, now when I tell my wife I'm going to cover a hurricane, they have a heart attack. But first and foremost, you got to know that you're not going to be in that much danger. I mean, you could be tethered to a pole or something like that, but fact of the matter is they're not going to put you in an environment where you're going to, you know, have your life in jeopardy. But to be on the beach right as the eye of the hurricane is making landfall 8 miles from where you're standing and getting, you know, wind-blown rain in your face, doing a live shot, you know, holding back the wind to the best of your ability, is kind of a rush.
Yeah, it can be humbling. It's humbling too, right?
Yeah. Very humbling. You don't want to mess with
Yeah.
Mother Nature. Mother Nature will
Yeah.
always win.
Note to future meteorology students: learn the hurricane lean. And lean to the wind.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess my positive story, since I have two UNCC people on here, recently we had a weather event in Brisbane, Australia. I believe it was a Halliburton client, and we have this thing called the Threat ID. It's kind of sort of our version. Well, it's a risk assessment, but it's also kind of like a severe thunderstorm watch, flood watch, that sort of thing. And so we had an event out for very heavy rainfall. And then I took a closer look at the event, and I thought to myself, this actually looks more like severe weather, and the heavy rain's just kind of implied. And so I basically treated this event like a Dr. Easton mesoscale homework. Like I just did all the steps just like we did in the homework. I found where all the convergence was, and where was the divergence, and what's the cape, and where's the shear, and I drew circles, and I saw where everything overlapped, and I emailed my team, and I was like, guys, I think we need to change this to a severe weather event. And after some back and forth, like, finally convinced them to change the event to a severe weather event, and they ended up getting baseball-size hail. So it was the right call, and I literally sent an email to Dr. Easton thanking him. Right after that happened, I was like, "You are awesome, Dr. Easton. You taught me well." So yeah, if you can take his mesoscale class, do it. Any UNC Charlotte people, highly recommended.
Definitely.
Am I the only UNC Asheville guy here, by the way?
Nope. Not you. Sometimes we've had others on, but
I'm just kidding.
all right. I did have one other question that I want to throw in, and that was to all you guys before you got into college or maybe after. Is there anything that you did to learn meteorology, like comment modules, books, stuff like that? What would you recommend to people, you know, before they get into college and then after as well?
Well, one thing that I did starting in high school, so I guess before high school, all I did was watch the Weather Channel, and then if I gave someone a forecast, it's basically what Jim Cantori was saying on TV. But in high school, I started following, and I know you guys are probably going to know who this is, Frank Strait on AccuWeather.
Nice.
And he had a video blog. I think he started it like my junior year of high school. And, you know, Frank goes over all the models. I learned about the 540 line through Frank Strait and much more than that. And so by the time I got into college, I kind of had an overall understanding of the computer models. Then later in college, I started my own little Facebook page, Weatherman Cam. Actually, a friend of mine forced me to form it because I used to be in an acapella group, and I was putting all these crazy weather updates on the acapella group page, and they're like, Cam, you've got to get your own page. So one of my friends made me Weatherman Cam. What? Well, one of my friends made me Weatherman Cam and was like, okay, do it here, and that's how Weatherman Cam started. And I guess that's just kind of how I learned about forecasting.
Hey, Cam, just to let you know, Frank is watching tonight.
Nice.
Frank is watching tonight. He tweeted just a little while ago.
Oh, really? Awesome.
I remember he came to. I remember watching a lecture he did actually. UNC Charlotte. He came when I was a freshman.
Yeah, we just had him back last year actually for another visit. So
Nice.
Frank's
Good stuff, Frank.
Frank's a regular and a UNCA graduate. So
That's right.
there.
I'm not alone. I'm not alone. Nice to see you, Frank.
I think I sometimes call tropical disturbances critters, and I think that's his fault. I think that's a Frank Strait thing.
Well, I have one last question for you guys, and I think I know the answer for Cam, but I'm still going to ask it. What's your favorite event to forecast? I mean, is it severe weather, winter weather? What is it for you guys?
For me, it's tropical. I just enjoy. That's one of the reasons I enjoyed. I was excited about getting the opportunity to come to Jacksonville, even though Jacksonville had a direct hit since Hurricane Dora about 50 years ago. We've had skirts with the outer bands and stuff like that, but it's really kind of a cool thing. I think because you can track it for so long. A lot of times, sometimes they pop up pretty quick towards the coast, of course. But you can really kind of track and follow the different forecast models and follow, the moment the hurricane hunter takes off. We're all tweeting about it. I mean, it's just a fun thing to do, and we can track all that stuff and see when the winds are going. I've seen some nice debates on, why did they do that? We've seen winds of this speed already. Why are they not doing this? It's kind of a nice debate, meteorologically speaking, on social media and throughout, the office or anything like that. But tropical is definitely, it really shows the power of Mother Nature, and hopefully it never hits anything. But when the times they do, again, as a broadcast meteorologist, you can hopefully be there to help people get through that kind of potentially and most likely a life-changing event.
I like snow. I like forecasting snow. Last year when we got that 28-incher, the night before we left, we were calling for 12 to 18, and I left, and I was thinking, I feel pretty confident about this forecast. Yeah, no. 28 inches. 28 inches, and that was the third biggest hit here in South Virginia. I think snow forecasting is such an incredible challenge. I mean, there are so many variables to look at when you're forecasting snow that if you make a good forecast, if you make an accurate forecast when it comes to snowfall forecasting, you kind of deserve to get a pat on the back because there's 25 to 30 different variables you're looking at. It's hard, and it can be a pain, and nothing humbles you more in this business than snowfall forecasting, at least from my perspective. I can't tell you how many emails I've gotten, people have wanted to say the company should starve me to death because my forecast was wrong. But fact of the matter,
it's in their best, right?
We make mistakes, and if you expect perfection, it's not going to happen. We're just like everybody else. That's all there is to it. We make mistakes, and I think I can speak for Garrett and Cameron and for everybody who's about to get into this business. There's no more humbling of a job than being a television or just a meteorologist in general. Mother Nature will always put you in your place.
Definitely.
Okay, so I'm a tropical meteorologist, so you guys know my favorite type of forecasting. So I'm going to tell you my least favorite kind of forecasting, and that is fog. Fog is so hard, and it's not that I hate it, but it can just get frustrating sometimes because there's so much uncertainty. And I think I mentioned this earlier. I have to do fog forecasts for a bunch of ship channels, and you think fog, that's not such a big deal. Fog's boring. That doesn't blow away a house. But then one thing you don't realize is, say you have two cruise ships, and one's supposed to port on Saturday and the other one's supposed to port on Sunday, and then you have this huge fog event on Saturday, so the Saturday cruise ship can't get in, then it clears out on Sunday, the Sunday cruise ship goes in, but the Saturday cruise ship still can't go in because the Sunday cruise ship is there, and they've just lost 2 days of when people were supposed to be on the cruise ship spending money, and they've just lost millions of dollars. So fog forecasting has millions of dollars at stake.
No pressure, weatherman Cam.
Wow.
No pressure.
Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. I've never thought of fog this way. I mean, I knew when I interned at the National Weather Service and I had to do TAFs and doing visibility forecasts for that, and that was really hard, and that was one thing that made me think maybe I shouldn't do National Weather Service because I don't like the visibility forecasting for the airport. But yeah, fog is tough. It's very tough, and it's not as fun as snow.
Hey, Kim, why don't you start forecasting fog in 30 degrees?
No.
As a pilot, if it fogs over at the airport, we're just going to go into the airport lounge and drink a few beers and not worry about it.
Yeah.
Shit, I don't know. All right, Scotty, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, guys, thanks so much for coming on. And I do have to agree with you with what Jeff said. Snow is the most humbling thing. I mean, especially here in the Carolinas where elevation is so dependent. 10 miles makes all the difference. So a very great show tonight, guys. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for letting us in on your world, on what you guys do, and hopefully for the viewers who watch tonight, you guys have learned something. I'll let you guys kind of plug your social media outlets and how people can follow you and interact with you guys, and then we'll talk about next week's show and we'll sign on off. Cam, we'll start with you.
You want me to talk about social media?
Well, whatever you want to talk about.
Well, I guess I still do have Weatherman Cam, and I occasionally post if there's bad Carolina weather, but because I'm so busy these days, the you-know-what literally has to be hitting the fan for me to be posting on Weatherman Cam. But yeah, I mean, anyone who wants to go into meteorology, I mean, this is going to sound pretty cliche, but just work really hard. And if you have the drive, I mean, it takes lots of drive. And Garrett said it perfectly. You have to have a goal. You have to kind of have a direction. And as long as you have that direction and you have that end point and you have the will to work, then really you should have no problem becoming a meteorologist.
Jeff?
I'm at Jeff Haniewich, WSLS, Facebook, WSLS Weather, Twitter. First and foremost, I do want to apologize to everybody. This is the first time I've ever done this, and so I'm hand-holding my iPhone, and now I know next time I do this, I better buy those fancy little cameras that you can post up on your computer. So if you guys have been getting sick by watching me move my camera every now and again, getting car sick or whatever, I do apologize, but this is the first time I've done this. And a shout out to Scotty. Scotty, I can't thank you enough for inviting me on this show. This has been a lot of fun, and I look forward to doing it again.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that we could get you on, and I'm sorry that we had to cancel your Kiwanis event, but maybe
it's rescheduled for next Thursday. We're good to go.
All right, well, that's good. But Jeff, thanks so much for coming on, and we'd love to have you anytime that you can come on.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah, no problem. And
Quick note. Anybody else that wants to come on, Scotty does all of our booking, so
that's right. Yeah.
Get with him.
Jeff, next time you get a 28-inch snowstorm up there, we're gonna do a special show.
Sounds like a plan, buddy.
All right, Garrett, I'll kind of let you plug your social media stuff if you want to.
He might be frozen.
He might be frozen. Well,
Garrett's on Twitter at WX Garrett. You can also follow him on Facebook at Garrett Bedenbaugh and send him a tweet and talk to him. WXGarrett.com too. Don't forget about that one. So.
And Jeff, next, if you seriously just come on down at 77 or 81 or whatever, I'll meet you there and we'll go play golf at Sawgrass. That's my dream course to go play golf at. So.
The Island Green, number 17. Let's go.
That's it. And even if I don't put a golf ball in the water the first time, I just have to do it just because, you know.
I can guarantee you my ball will end up in the water.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Jeff, for coming on. Next week we were having Rob Fowler from Charleston, South Carolina. Can't remember his station, but Channel 2 down in Charleston, South Carolina. Rob's going to be on, and we're going to have the McDowell County Emergency Manager, Mr. William Keller, on, kind of talking about emergency management and meteorology, how those two entities cooperate with each other. Then the week after that, it's going to be Women in Weather. We're going to have on Laura Mock from WHSV and Jennifer Watson from the Weather Channel. Both of those ladies are going to be joining us on January 28th to kind of talk about what got them into weather and what their careers are headed towards. So I see that Garrett's back with us. So Garrett, we plugged your social media, but we'll let you do it.
Okay.
We'll let you do it anyway.
Nice. Sorry, for some reason my connectivity went away. So yeah, Twitter at WXGarrett, Facebook.com/Garrett Bedenbaugh. I'm on Google Plus as well, Garrett Bedenbaugh. It's kind of hard to spell, but anyway. Yeah, so most of my stuff, I enjoy Twitter, and we have a website at WXGarrett.com, so all the same branding. And also, if you're ever in Jacksonville, check us out down here, Action News, CBS, or Fox on each channel. And I do the weekend weather, so the evening weather, so it's kind of fun. And we get to track storms and fun stuff like that, and snow occasionally. But thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. And now we know if there's a hurricane headed towards Jacksonville, we know who we can come stay with. So
Yeah, seriously.
we're excited.
Free place to stay. No Hilton. We got a place in Garrett.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming on. Joey, do you have a rant tonight? I forgot to ask you before the show.
No, I didn't really have a rant. I mean, I guess we could, we talked about last week about school systems and canceling school, and man, did we have a mess of a day. This morning we had everyone cancel school yesterday early. People got up today to mostly wet roads and 29, 30-degree air temperatures, and apparently half of everybody who has Facebook did not take 8th grade science or 3rd grade science for that matter, because they had no idea that if the air temperature is below 30 and there's some kind of liquid out there that could probably freeze. So they want to know why school was canceled or a 2-hour delay this morning when when their road in front of their house was wet. But so I guess my rant this week would just be everyone go get your if you got a 3rd grader in your house, call him up and ask him what temperature water freezes, because I know my 3rd grader coming here right now and tell everybody. So yeah, grab them, check that out again, and maybe the next time we have this problem, you won't shoot off at your mouse so quickly. That's pretty much it, Scotty. Let's send it home.
All right, we're looking forward to the January thaw for the next several days, and then it looks like a major cool down expected late next week. So enjoy the sunny weather while it's here, because it looks like it might get a little bit active towards the end of the month. So guys, thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. We hope that you guys will come back on. And for everyone watching tonight, thanks for watching. We'll see you next Wednesday. Have a great week.